The 14-year-old boy that's currently on your screen is believed to be Britain's youngest ever defendant convicted of a gun murder and has been handed a life sentence ordered to serve at least 16 years. I'm going to get into exactly what happened. So Keon, the innocent victim in this case, was talking to his friend outside his house when a white Ford S-Max pulled up and several men had jumped out the car. They run him down and he was stabbed and shot. He tried to get up numerous times, which is the saddest part about this, and then he was chased again. This was all caught on CCTV. And despite the best efforts of a nurse nearby and emergency services, he lost his life. Rest in peace to him.
Well, Keon was 15 years old and acted like any teenager. You know, he was a loving brother, he was a loving son. You know, he was friends with a good number of people who we spoke to during the course of the investigation. The family have been absolutely devastated by the events that have taken place.
The 24 years that I've been serving in the police service, and I don't say this lightly, this is the most gratuitous use of violence, seeing the combination of knife and gun attack, which ultimately killed Keon. The answer to this investigation lies in the community, and we know that the nature of this crime, where it involves a young man that's lost his life and young men that have committed the crime, means that the information and intelligence is highly likely to rest with the younger community, but also their parents. You know, there's a moral obligation. Imagine if that was your friend or your son. You've got to come forward. And I know that's not easy, but there are ways that information can be passed that can assist in us getting the right outcome. And the right outcome here is people being brought to justice.
Police never found out why the 15-year-old was targeted, but say this attack wasn't random and the attackers tried to cover up their crime. Evidence relied heavily on CCTV footage and mobile phone records. The getaway car was found crashed nearby. Inside, police discovered a knife with Keon's blood and a face mask with one of the defendant's DNA.
The men had made off in the car they had come in, the Ford white S-Max, before crashing it, and it was found out they had false plates on the stolen car. Weapons were also found in this car, linking them to the attack with DNA evidence.
From our CCTV inquiries, it is really apparent that they make efforts to change their clothing before the incident and then change very shortly afterwards. They have gone about in a car with the intent to cause really serious harm or to kill somebody. The motive as to why that was Keon is not clear. It could have been somebody else stood on their own doorstep, in the road. Very sadly, it was Keon that was chosen, and it was Keon that lost his life.
During the 5-week trial at Birmingham Crown Court, the jury was told that Keon was stabbed 8 times, but the fatal injury was to his abdomen on January the 21st. 5 defendants, all aged between 14 and 18, denied the M charge. It was alleged that the gunman was just 14 years old, who couldn't initially be named for legal reasons but now can. Opening the case for prosecution, there was no motive for this attack, which is the craziest thing about it. The 14-year-old alleged to have pulled the trigger lied to police, claiming that he spent his day logged into online school lessons, but records showed that he didn't attend any of the lessons, logging on at 8:30 AM. The alleged gunman was arrested a week later and said he did not have a falling out with Keon, and also told the police that he had gone to a friend's house and watched television till about 11 o'clock that night before booking a taxi home. But there was no record of his phone number booking a taxi. The prosecution also showed CCTV footage of the other attackers armed with large knives, which Keon was stabbed with repeatedly. He had died in hospital about 2 hours later after suffering 8 sharp false injuries and an injury to a major artery. The short and brutal attack lasted about 30 seconds, is what was said in court, continuing even after Keon tried to get up and run away. He was shot whilst on the ground, adding the group continued hacking it in with large knives.
What would have motivated them to do such a thing? But We do not know, and the courts are also saying the same. They do not know the motive that would have driven them to such a crime.
What was particularly difficult with this investigation was, the age of Keon, only 15, and of course the defendants. At the time, one of them was only 14 years old, and the others were extremely young as well. So dealing with youngsters and realising, what they'd actually taken part in was, extremely difficult to come to terms with.
The 14-year-old boy who had pulled the trigger got himself 16 years inside. Two men that were both 17, now 18, were given a minimum term of 19 years inside, and a 16-year-old who was convicted of an M charge but cannot be named for legal reasons was ordered to serve 17 years, and a fifth defendant was found guilty of manslaughter and, provided the weapons, was given 12 years inside.
All that is really wanted today is justice. It's not about sort of getting back at the people that's done the crime, but it's about just getting justice for the crime that's been done. This has to stop, and community leaders and faith leaders, we're all saying the same. It has to stop. There has to be a way that we can begin to reach our young people, across the city to stop this. The level of crime that's being created from this it's quite devastating.
It's one of them horrible stories that come up every so often where someone is literally just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I still cannot, through all the research I've done, find any motive on why they took this young man's life. It's an absolutely horrible thing for his family to have to deal with. No motive behind it whatsoever. He had done nothing wrong, completely innocent, but his life was taken. Obviously, he's not here to explain any possible problems he would have had with these people, and of course they don't want to speak to police either. They're just going to give no comment interviews. You can't find out if there was any kind of motive that would have caused this to happen. As if things couldn't get worse, when people were mourning the death of Keon, another person was shot at the cemetery in Birmingham as a crowd of people gathered to pay tribute to him. Another case, it said that a 17-year-old was shot in the foot, but his injuries are not thought to be serious. Police have described the incident as shocking and wanted any witnesses to come forward. I just want to finish off this video by saying rest in peace to Keon one more time, someone that was in the wrong place at the wrong time and his life was taken, and the case is still up in the air in why exactly it happened and what the motive was behind it. Youngsters' lives are getting taken too much in the UK nowadays. Something needs to be done about this. It's absolutely shocking.